Good morning, everyone, and welcome to all EARTO members and guests to this year's EARTO Annual Conference 2026, held for the first time here in Brussels. Special thanks to the EARTO Belgian members for hosting us, and in particular to Imec and VITO, also for hosting our last days of internal events. As you know, EARTO represents the powerful pool of resources of more than 350 RTOs from across 32 countries in Europe and beyond. And as key players of the research and development in innovation ecosystem, RTOs bridge the gap between scientific excellence and industrial application. The so-called valley of death, where too many innovations fail to reach the market. By supporting industry in the risking, the R&D investments, RTO help industry transform research and technologies into tangible solutions to be scaled up into products and services. This is why this year's theme of the conference is From Research to Industrial Power, scaling up Europe's critical technologies. Today's discussion will focus on these themes. We will start by discussing the role of RTOs and the industry in securing Europe's technological sovereignty. While in the afternoon sessions, we will dive into the role of RTOs in supporting industry by de-risking technologies and the role of RTO ventures in scaling up their own startups. We have a full agenda today filled with very high-level speakers from EARTO members, the Belgian and Flemish Parliaments, and European institutions, including a closing keynote speech by Ekaterina Zahareva, the European Commissioner for Startups and Research and Innovation. Additionally, this year, in the frame of the conference, we will also celebrate the EARTO Innovation Awards. I know that most of you are waiting for that. Also, one of the highlights of our annual gatherings. Every year, through the Impact Deliver and Impact Expected categories, the awards showcase outstanding innovations developed by EARTO members and demonstrate how RTOs turn research excellence into real economic and societal impact. They are tangible illustrations of our community contribution to European competitiveness, resilience, and technological leadership. However, before giving the floor to our first speakers, I would like to ask our co-host to join me on the stage for a few words. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Inge Neven, CEO of VITO. Welcome, Inge. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Dear Excellencies, dear friends and dear partners, a very warm welcome to Belgium. As you know, Belgium is a small country. We're almost foremost known for chocolate and for good beer, so I hope you had the occasion to taste it or still to taste it today. Belgium is a small country. We rank 158 out of 190 countries. And that's also why we have to be very strong. And Julius Caesar called us the most bravest people with whom we've been competing in the past. We don't have a lot of natural resources, we don't have natural protection, so that also means that we need to collaborate, we need to be connected to others. And yes, we are the 18th export country in the world. And we have a lot of freedom in Belgium, I think that's very important these days, and a lot of innovation. We rank second if it comes to the percentage of innovation compared to the GDP, with very strong industrial R&D centers and also very strong innovation partners, like you can see them here, that are partnering today to make this event happening. Innovation is also something very strong, I think, within Europe, and we are also uniquely positioned there. Together with all the RTOs that are present here today, we form a very nice community, also with the partners of RIN that are globally connected as well. And all of us, all of us, researchers, policymakers, and managers, we are the ones, you are the ones who turn the knowledge into impact, who connect science to society, who bridge the innovation and reality, and therefore, together we make Europe stronger every day. And yes, we have to say we need to, because we have many challenges, and those challenges are connected. Let me give you a few examples. On energy, we are 57% dependent on others. Europe is importing 57% of its energy, 350 billion euros a year. Materials, we are very much dependent on others when it comes to materials, and on heavy rare earth materials, for example, we are 100% dependent on other continents. Digital, we know that the Big Five in the US is investing this year 800 billion euros in data and AI. That's exactly the amount that was mentioned also in the Draghi report. We have to think about it. Security defense is very high on the agenda, and yes, we need to invest there because we have to protect ourselves better. And climate, last but not least, we have here in Europe temperatures that are rising much faster than in the other continents. So many challenges, and maybe a last one, we also have to wonder, what about our attitude? Are we still so positive, or are we going into a more negative sphere and a protective sphere? That's really not good. And that's why I think also that RTOs like us, we are at the side of the solutions, so we are by definition very positive, and that's also why I think that we can also, and we should take the lead to also to make that a strong Europe competition again. How can we do this? Then I come back, and some people know this already, with 3 S's. We need to speed, to scale, and we need to collaborate smart. First of all, speed. I know we have bad memories about the COVID time, but one thing was very good during COVID. We could create really a lot of speed. I remember very well that the 31st of December, there was an announcement of a new variant coming from Brazil. And the 1st of January at 8 o'clock in the morning, we were opening test centers all over at the airports and stations to make sure that we could contain the further spread of that virus. So this was possible, and this is where we have to look for to see on how we can create that speed. Secondly, we need scale. We need scale looking at cross-border investment, for example, for energy. We need faster access to capital and markets for startups, not having them to renew all the introductions of their new products in every new market that they're accessing. And we need also for ourselves to make sure that our pilots are well used and that we really also can bring them much quicker towards real ecosystems and industrial clusters. And thirdly, we need smart collaboration between all of us, between the RTOs, with the policymakers, with society, with finance, with all of everybody we can connect with. And that includes Europe and as well the rest of the world, because we are strong together and we need to be open and remain connected also to the rest of the world. And for the RTOs, that means with the partners of RIN as well, and also through GSTIC, with which we also had a very nice conference the day before yesterday. And with these 3 elements, together with a positive mindset, I think that the evolution, the innovation solutions that we bring, if we can bring them with speed, at scale, when we join forces, we really can move Europe from a defensive and protective position to a positive and proactive leading position again. And this is also why I hope, sincerely, that this EARTO conference is not just another event, but the beginning of something bigger. The beginning of a renewed European ambition and competitive position, driven by RTOs, realizing the 5th freedom, rooted in freedom and innovation. Thank you very much and enjoy the day.
We are strong together. I keep this in my mind for the full day. Thank you very much, Inge. Thank you very much for hosting the event, and also thank you very much for the great dinner yesterday. I would now like to invite the recently elected chairman of Imec's board of directors and former CEO of Imec, Luc van der Hove, to the stage. Welcome, Luc. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, let me start by thanking Jesús and Inge for their excellent opening remarks and for setting the scene for what promises to be a very engaging conference. On behalf of Imec, it is a pleasure to welcome you all and to support this year's EARTO annual conference. As we have heard, Europe is at a pivotal moment, addressing the major transitions in digitalization, sustainability, and resilience requires not only strong research, but also the ability to translate that research into industrial reality at scale. This is where research and technology organizations play a crucial role. Here, we connect science with application and innovation with impact. At Imec, we see this very concretely in our involvement in Europe's semiconductor ecosystem, including the development of advanced pilot lines under the EU CHIPS Act. These pilot lines act as a key instrument to de-risk innovation, to accelerate technology transfer, and to strengthen Europe's strategic capabilities. But their success really depends on collaboration, on bringing together RTOs, industry partners, and policymakers in a truly integrated way. In that sense, the mission of EARTO is more relevant than ever. It is about ensuring that Europe not only innovates, but also has the means to deploy and scale those innovations. At Imec, we strongly believe in open innovation as a foundation for that. By working across borders and disciplines, and by building strong ecosystems, we can turn technological leadership into societal and economic value. This conference offers exactly the right platform to further that ambition, to exchange ideas, to strengthen partnerships, and to shape a shared vision for Europe's future. I would like to thank EARTO for organizing this event, especially Muriel, and all of you for being part of this vibrant community. I wish you a very inspiring and productive conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luc, for your words and also for hosting the event, and also for hosting the RIM meeting yesterday, RIM meeting with all our international partners coming from all over the world, and also for the visit to incredible facilities of Imec yesterday. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, both of you, for hosting us today, and without further ado, I would like to kick off the EARTO annual conference by inviting on stage our first keynote speaker, Eléonore Simonet, Federal Minister of the Middle Class, Self-Employed and SMEs, and Member of the Parliament of the Brussels Capital Region. It's truly an honor to have you with us.
Thank you, President Valero. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished RTO leaders and partners, thank you for inviting me to speak at this important conference. It is a pleasure for me to be here in Brussels with so many innovation leaders focused on one of the defining challenges of our time, turning excellent European research into real industrial power. As Belgium's Federal Minister for the Self-Employed and SMEs, my guiding principle is clear: more opportunities, fewer, less obstacles. And this is not just a slogan, it is the red thread running through my entire policy. And today, the single biggest obstacle facing entrepreneurs is no longer just local red tape or other restrictive burdens. It is our collective vulnerability on the global stage. If we want to create real opportunities for businesses, we must tackle the macro challenges together. That is why my policies are fully embedded in a broader European vision. And that vision has concrete momentum behind it. Last week, the European Commission presented its European Technological Sovereignty Package, a set of measures to strengthen Europe's capacity in semiconductors, artificial intelligence, cloud, and open source, designed precisely to reduce our excessive dependencies and to build capacity on European soil. Europe will not win the global technology race through invention alone. We will win by our ability to industrialize, scale, and deploy critical technologies in the EU, capturing value and creating quality jobs here. That is why technological sovereignty matters so much. It is not about autarky, but about reducing excessive dependencies and securing our critical capacities from design and testing to production, scale-up financing, skills, and market deployment. Ladies and gentlemen, access to critical raw materials is a fundamental prerequisite for this technological sovereignty. Without secure supplies of the materials needed for batteries, semiconductors, clean tech, defense, digital technologies, we cannot produce, let alone industrialize, the solutions our continent needs. The geopolitical context makes this urgent. OECD data shows that export restrictions on critical raw materials have multiplied by 5 since 2009 and remain at historically high levels. Between 2022 and 2024, around 16% of global trade in these materials faced at least one export restriction, with particularly high levels for cobalt, manganese, graphite, and rare earths. This is not an abstract risk. It directly threatens our supply chains, especially for our SMEs, which often lack the scale or resources of larger players. That is why European initiatives, such as the Critical Raw Materials Act and the Resource EU Plan, are so important. They aim to diversify supply sources, boost domestic processing and recycling, and build genuine European value chains. The CRMA sets clear 2030 benchmarks: 10% extraction, 40% processing, and 25% recycling within the EU, while limiting dependency on any single third country to 65%. At the Belgian level, through the Interfederal Make 2530 Industrial Revival Plan, we are developing a real cross-government strategy on critical raw materials. Belgium has a world-class industrial and technological fabric, particularly in recycling, circular economy, advanced materials, chemistry, and clean technologies. We are determined to play an ambitious leading role in these European value chains. Dear all, RTOs, the organizations you all represent, are indispensable actors in this story. You are the essential bridge between world-class science and industrial application. You reduce risks for industry through pilot infrastructure, prototyping, demonstrators, technological validation, and scale-up support. You help deep tech startups and SMEs cross the notorious valley of death between proof of concept and first customer, and ultimately full industrial deployment and market integration. This is exactly the aim of the package. The CHIPS Act 2.0, for example, builds its Chip for Europe initiative around pilot lines, competence centers, test and experimentation facilities, and it makes accelerating the Fab to Lab transition an explicit objective. In other words, Europe is now putting real instruments beyond the very bridge that you, as RTOs, embody every day. Personally, my first SME plan, approved at the end of 25 by the entire federal government, includes a broad set of 89 measures. A key goal is to strengthen this bridge and to ensure that excellent research finds its way into the real economy. A few examples, not the 89 measures, but we are, for example, making startups and scale-ups more dynamic through visa acceleration for talent, AI sandboxes, reform of the student entrepreneur status, and better access to unused patents via open source mechanisms after a reasonable period. This approach is shared and now reinforced at EU level with the new open source strategy. We are also improving access to alternative financing, because more than 300 billion euros is sitting in Belgian saving accounts. We want to mobilize this passion capital into productive investments in our SMEs and scale-ups. Thirdly, we promote a second chance entrepreneur culture here in Belgium. because nearly 50% of new companies cease their activity within 5 years. Failure should be a learning opportunity, not the end of the road. We are strengthening the right to be forgotten for non-fraudulent bankruptcies. Female entrepreneurship is a dossier that is personally very close to my heart. I know women are as capable and ambitious as men, sometimes more. Yet, they still often face specific obstacles: a heavier burden of family tasks, less access to financing, less access to networks. That is why my plan aims to raise the share of women self-employed from around 36% towards 40% during this legislature. In addition, across the board, we are cutting administrative burdens, one of the top biggest obstacles identified by 55% of European SMEs. All 89 measures of my SME plan follow the same logic. My baseline: more opportunities, fewer obstacles, so that entrepreneurs can focus on what they do best: innovating, growing, and creating jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, supply-side investment should be paired with demand-side measures, strategic projects with the right enabling conditions. We need an ecosystem approach that mirrors the vision I've just shared with you. The European Technology Sovereignty Package appears to go in the right direction. We must use it as a chance to give our smaller players a concrete stake in Europe's technological future. The quality of our European strategy should not be measured only by the number of patents or publications, but by our capacity to produce, deploy, and capture value on European soil. RTOs play a central role in making this continuum a reality. You translate science into technology, reduce the distance to industry, and support the adoption and scaling that Europe so urgently needs. Europe, and you know it, has the talent, the research excellence, and industrial know-how. What we need now is speed, coordination, and collective determination to move from research to industrial power. Let us use this momentum, the momentum of the new European Technological Sovereignty Package, CRMA, Resource EU, STEP, and the competitiveness agenda, together with national plans, such as SME plans, Belgium's Make 2530, to build resilient European value chains in which SMEs and RTOs play the full part. Because when RTOs, SMEs, policymakers align, we don't just talk about technological sovereignty, we deliver it. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us, Minister Simonet, and thank you for such interesting insights on Brussels' innovation ecosystem, but also on your words on the importance of technological sovereignty and the key role that RTOs can play. It is now my pleasure to welcome on stage Simon Gheysen, Chief of Staff of the Cabinet of Matthias Diependaele, Minister President and Minister of Innovation of the Flemish Parliament, for some insights from Flanders. Thank you very much.
Dear representatives of EARTO, distinguished guests, dear Minister Simonet, it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Minister President Matthias Diependaele and the Government of Flanders today. I want to start by thanking EARTO for bringing together Europe's leading research and technology organizations. At a time when Europe is searching for answers on declining productivity, fierce global competition and technological disruption, the role of our RTOs has never been more important. Because the question facing Europe today is not whether we can produce excellent science. We can, without any doubt. The real question is whether we can transform scientific excellence into industrial leadership, technological sovereignty, and economic prosperity. And that is precisely why RTOs matter today. And today I would like to explain this through something that is deeply embedded in Flemish culture. Maybe a bit atypical, but I would like to make the analogy with cycling. And I know it may sound a bit cheesy, but in Flanders, cycling is more than a sport, it's almost a religion. I'm also a big cycling enthusiast myself, and for those who want to know, yes, I also cried when Wout van Aert won Paris-Roubaix, heavily. The reason why I want to make the analogy is because anyone who wants to win a major race knows that three things are essential: a strong chain, state-of-the-art frame, and above all, the mentality to win. I believe these three lessons also apply to Europe's innovation and competitiveness agenda. First and foremost, the chain must be strong. A cyclist may have the strongest legs in the peloton, but if his chain breaks, the race is over. And I believe the same applies to innovation policy. The innovation chain consists of many links: education, fundamental research, applied research, entrepreneurship, finance, and industrial deployment. Europe cannot afford weak links. And this is where I am particularly proud of what we have built in Flanders. Today, Flanders is one of Europe's leading innovation regions. Our R&D intensity stands at 3.52% of GDP, placing us among the strongest performers in Europe. Among EU member states, only Sweden performs better than Flanders. And these results are not accidental, but they are the consequence of strategic choices made decades ago. So in fact, it's not the current administration, the current government, or the current minister-president who can take credit for that. It's a long-standing tradition, but maybe don't tell him that I've told you all this. It was in fact in the 1980s that visionary policymakers launched an ambitious initiative called Flanders Technology. And at the time, this was anything but obvious. It required political courage, long-term thinking, and a belief that technology and innovation would shape the future of our economy. That vision laid the foundations for our strategic research centers, such as Imec, VITO, VEB, and Flanders Make, all of which we are very proud. Today, these organizations are recognized globally as leaders in their respective fields. They attract talent from around the world and collaborate with the best companies and universities. Their aim is to generate breakthrough technologies and create economic value far beyond their walls. But most importantly, they demonstrate the power of strategic research centers as connectors with the innovation ecosystem. And today, more than ever, the focus of this government is to bridge the gap between scientific discovery and industrial application. And the good thing is that this is happening as we speak. Look at the collaboration Imec has with ASML, for instance, but not only with ASML, with almost every major player in the semicon industry. Look at the close ties VITO has with our petrochemical industry in Antwerp. Look at what VIB means for the Flemish biotech industry. And look at what Flanders Make does on a daily basis for our Flemish production industry. And by accelerating that journey from laboratory to market, we are strengthening Europe's ability to compete globally. And I would say that the Flemish lesson on this is quite simple. World-class innovation systems are not built overnight. They require long-term commitment, institutional continuity, and a relentless focus on connecting research with economic value. Strategic research centers are not a cost, they are a competitive asset and an investment in the future. I would say the stronger the chain, the bigger the gain. Second, the frame of the cyclist must be state-of-the-art. Even the strongest cyclist loses the race if the bike itself is outdated. And the same applies for our policy framework. A competitive innovation system requires a competitive policy framework. Research excellence alone is not enough. Innovators must also have access to capital, infrastructure, talent, and a regulatory environment that enables growth. And in Flanders, we have consistently invested in this. We understand that public investment can act as a catalyst. Just last year, we have significantly increased the available capital for our Flanders Future Tech Fund. We have increased ticket sizes for innovation. And we are also investing in strategic assets through our Flemish Sovereign Wealth Fund, PMV. For example, by gaining controlling share in our national airport, or for example, by the creation of a $1 billion Flemish Defence Fund. But we also understand the limits of public capital. Europe's competitiveness challenge cannot be solved alone through public finance. To illustrate this, and Inge also mentioned it in her speech, let me point out to a striking recent news fact. This year alone, the 5 largest American big tech companies Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and Oracle have announced to invest a staggering 800 billion in data centers powering the AI revolution. And globally, I think it is essential to understand that we are at the outset of a massive CapEx investment cycle. And for the European Union, it is existential not to miss this wave of private investment. The economies of tomorrow are being built through the investments of today. And this is also where the Draghi report pinpointed this maybe inconvenient European truth. We are excellent at generating knowledge. We are less successful at scaling it at industrial level. And too often we see European startups become American scale-ups. Too often we see European innovation seek financing elsewhere. And too often we see European savings being invested outside of Europe. And this is not because Europe lacks capital, definitely not. Europe is one of the wealthiest regions in the world. The challenge is that our capital remains idle and fails to reach our innovative companies and industrial transformation projects. And that is why it is my personal belief that the public debate in Europe on competitiveness should focus first and foremost on unlocking private capital. Completing the capital markets union should be a strategic priority for the European Union. Deeper and more integrated capital market would make it way more easy for innovative companies to access growth financing. And I would also like to refer to another recent study. It was made by the European Banking Federation. It's a very short study. It's only 5 pages. It's a must-read for everybody here today, I think, that points out that the capital requirements for our banking sector cause a loss in funding capabilities of 1.5 trillion a year. It's due to strict regulation that was installed after the financial crisis of 2008 for good reasons, I believe. But the side effects cause and hamper our innovation financing capabilities. So we should examine critically whether parts of our regulatory framework unintentionally discourage innovation and industrial transformation. The lighter our frame will be, the faster we will go. And then, third, and perhaps the most important lesson from cycling is this: the European mentality must be a mentality to win. No champion starts the race hoping merely not to lose. Champions race to win. And this may be the most important challenge facing Europe today. For too long, our debate on competitiveness has been focused on defensive terms. We talk about protecting what we have, we talk about protecting our position, preserving existing strengths, and managing decline. But the world around us is not standing still. The United States is competing to lead. China is competing to lead, so Europe must compete to lead as well. In Flanders, and this is on a personal note, maybe the most counterintuitive thing to say as a humble Flemish guy, we have to cultivate that winning mentality. And it should never be arrogance, it should never be complacency, but it should be built on a base of confidence. Confidence in our researchers, confidence in our entrepreneurs, confidence in our industries. Confidence in Europe's capacity to remain one of the world's leading innovation economy. A winning mentality means setting ambitious goals, and it means understanding that competitiveness is ultimately not just about policies, technologies, or investment. It's also about mindset and ambition. The most successful riders in the peloton are not those with the strongest legs. They are those who genuinely believe they can win, dare to take risks, and go for it. And Europe should have that same belief in itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, the global race for technological leadership is accelerating. Europe enters that race with remarkable strength. We have world-class researchers, outstanding universities, outstanding RTOs, and thank you again for bringing us all together here today, innovative companies, and exceptional research organization. But success will depend on whether we can transform these strengths into lasting competitiveness. And to summarize, this requires 3 things: a strong chain that links science to industry, state-of-the-art frame that generates private capital, and the mentality to win. But when I look into the crowd today, I see a lot of knowledge, I see a lot of ambition, so I am very positive that Europe can position itself excellently. I only just don't know how rich you all are to generate your capital, but I won't ask you this. But looking at the crowd, Europe will right to win. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very interesting day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. To be confident in Europe, I keep these words in my head. Thank you very much, Mr. Gheysen, for sharing the Flemish perspective through this biking metaphor. I'm coming myself from the Basque Country, where biking is also kind of a religion, so I appreciate a lot this metaphor. I will use for sure. Let's now welcome our next keynote speaker, who represents the Flemish Social Democratic Party at the European level. Welcome to the stage, Bruno Tobback, member of the S&D group in the European Parliament.
Morning to you all. Welcome to Brussels and to Belgium, and I was slightly taking offense with Inge when she introduced us as a small country. We may be, but I would say that one thing that I have learned since I went to the European Parliament not so long ago now, and that I memorized and remembered forever, was the saying from one of the founding fathers of the European Union, a Belgian, socialist by the way, Paul-Henri Spaak. They say things you need to remember. Who said that there are only two kinds of countries in Europe. There's small countries, and there's countries that have not yet realized that they are small. And I think we are right now in the global situation where Europe finds itself, and some of the speakers have already referred to it. I think we are more aware of it than ever, and I think more and more countries in Europe are aware of the fact that by themselves, they are pretty small. Individually, we're all Venezuela. Together, however, we can mightily get on the nerves of quite a few world leaders because we can make a difference. And it's already been mentioned a few times, we are still world leaders in quite a few areas in Europe. We are, and it's also been mentioned, but I'll put a number on it, the EU has about 6% of the world's population, but it produces about 20% of the world's top-class science. We are playing way above our size when it comes to scientific research. Sadly, and it's also been mentioned already, Europe attracts only 5%, even less than our population share, only 5% of global venture capital. And so, yes, we do have a problem when it comes to making the wishes of Mario Draghi come true, which is to translate that scientific leadership, all that knowledge, all that talent, and all those technologies that we grow here into prosperity, into profitable business, into actual leadership and opportunities, and most of all, into what practically every country in Europe needs if you look at the atmosphere in the population, which is a forward-looking, ambitious project that people can believe in and that will build a future prosperity, at least at the level, maybe different, but at least at the level of what we have today. That is something each and every one of the 27 member states of the European Union today is desperately looking for. And I do hope that research and technology can help us in building it. We'll not do it by itself, but I do hope that it can help us, that you can help us in building that and offering that future project to our citizens. And that will not just come from you, don't worry. I'm not putting all the blame or the responsibility on your shoulders. I think policy needs to take its own share of the responsibility. And there's a few points, I think, where we have opportunities and a few where we are definitely not doing it all that well. And I want to come back on the cycling metaphor. I cycled a bit myself, I'm a Belgian. So yes, you need a good chain, and yes, you need a great frame. And it hasn't been mentioned, but you could definitely do with a pair of strong legs as well. But none of those will help you if you're heading in the wrong direction. You're not going to win a race if you miss the turn. And one of the biggest hurdles and one of the biggest, most disturbing weasel words that are going around in European politics is the term of technological neutrality when it comes to policy making. It is used as a way for European politics to behave like a kid in a toy store, unable to make a choice, unable to choose a direction. And it has become a dogma that is more and more a handicap. Take the situation in the automotive sector, something that several of you are probably well familiar with. Yes, it is tragic in Europe, but it was not forced upon us. Much of what the sector is seeing happening today is self-inflicted. It was self-inflicted by hesitation, by clinging on to technology of the past, by trying to cash on incumbent positions, and now, right now, even trying to reopen settled decisions. In the meantime, China has made a clear strategic choice, stood by it, invested, and today dominates electric vehicle value chains, not just the production, but the entire value chain, while Europe is holding on to its combustion engines with one hand, developing battery strategies with the other, keeping the doors open for the huge benefits of biofuels, and not letting go of the great potential of hydrogen cars. Now raise your hand if you believe that this is a way to build a successful project. Thank you, I agree. Now the lesson is simple. The lesson is simple. Technological neutrality is a choice to avoid making a choice. And if you want to scale, you're going to have to choose. And making that decision is not easy. But what's the point of having research and technology organizations if you don't act upon the research that they have done, on the proof that has been delivered? And you cannot do that without some clear instruments. And we have some opportunities on the table right now. We are right now discussing on the European Competitiveness Fund in the Parliament, in the Commission, and also amongst the member states. And actually the Commission has proposed tools to make those informed choices. There is the competitiveness coordination tool that has been announced. And that should have come together with the Competitiveness Fund and the Industrial Accelerator Act, but it is surprisingly still missing. We need those tools to make sure that the means from the Competitiveness Fund, that are subsidies that are built to attract private financing that indeed we absolutely need, go in a direction that is clear, that is predictable, that gives certainty about the backing on it, and that will, with another magic word, de-risk that private investment. That is not going to come if we try to hobble on both legs at the same time. So I am working right now on some amendments on the Competitiveness Fund to make sure that we develop and integrate these decision-making tools into the process of awarding money and subsidies to those things that will build a future. Because I do think we need to do that. We need some top-down priority setting if we want to have successful projects. But that does not mean that top-down alone will ever function. Top-down from a European level, Europe is not China, it is not the United States either. Top-down without local anchoring will not work. Top-down without bottom-up readiness, without the connection there, without the co-creation with ecosystems in member states or cross-border in several member states, as we have, for example, between Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany right now. Top-down alone does not work. And so the second instrument is the smart specialization strategies. That is aimed at reinforcing local cross-border excellence and local cross-border ecosystems between research, industry, and educational institutions. We need, again, to link that to the European Competitiveness Fund, to European funding, and to development to make sure that we build that prosperous future together. A second thing, indeed, the European capital market, the capital union, is absolutely necessary. We don't lack money, we lack institutions, we lack players, we lack operators that can generate, mobilize, coordinate, bring together that money and make sure it is being invested in Europe. And there again, the European Competitiveness Fund should aim at mobilizing that money, at cooperating, first of all, bottom-up in the link with the research with the FP10 programs to make sure that we build those bridges, and secondly, to make sure that we then guarantee that private investors have somewhere to hook onto those and to make sure that a project grows, that indeed that innovation gap gets bridged and that those valleys of death get crossed. That is a challenge that we need more than ever if we do not want to be subsidizing, indeed, future American scale-ups with European research money. And one last point, it is, and it's also been mentioned already, it is the harmonization in Europe. Because one of the main reasons why scale-ups have it so much harder in Europe is because they need to generate money not to operate on one market, as they do in the United States, but to operate still in 27 separate markets. Because in many cases, regulation is still different across those 27 member states. Rules are different. Borders still exist. It was Ursula von der Leyen that said, that quoted the IMF saying that Europe's internal market barriers are still equivalent to a tariff of 45% for manufacturing and 110% for services. It's a giant hidden tariff that Ursula von der Leyen promised to move out of the way. That was 2 years ago. It is still there. We still have 27 different rules. We are hopeful about the 2028 regime for startups and scale-ups that should be on the books very soon, and that I hope will indeed create those opportunities. But we also need to make sure that we indeed harmonize the rules enough to make sure that, for example, transporting waste, and circularity has been mentioned, that transporting waste across European borders is not 10 times harder than just shipping it to China or to Turkey to extract those critical raw materials that we all definitely need, but send out of Europe. And so, yes, matching research, your knowledge, your ambition, to scale it into competitive industries is still a challenge in Europe. It is at least a challenge that we are acutely aware of right now, which was not necessarily the case 5 or 10 or even more years ago. So yes, we are getting our heads around it. We are not yet getting our heads above the 27 separate member states with their own problems and their own ambitions and their own legacy industries. And Flanders is not a stranger, and as a Flemish politician, I can say that Flanders is not a problem, not an exception to that problem. We too have problems in our policies in connecting the dots, and that prevents us from heading in the right direction. Because honestly, it is about making choices. It's about fundamental research and early stage research, where you do indeed throw things to the wall sometimes and see which sticks. Sorry for being disrespectful in some kind of way, if that sounds. But policy making and building is about taking the things that stick and then building on those, and being coherent in it and connecting the dots. We're not always very good at doing that. It makes no sense, to give you a final example, to aim for huge investment in technologies such as carbon capture and storage, if at the same time you are raging against an instrument such as emissions trading. Because honestly, like the poet said, you cannot have one without the other. The business case for carbon capture is an ambitious emissions trading system. And connecting those dots, choosing what are the opportunities, that is what policy making is about, and that is what winning is about. Because trying to have it all is the shortest road to losing. So let's try, indeed, and win together. I think we have the awareness right now. I think we have the potential right now. We definitely have the funds at the European level. Let's now develop the tools to make sure that the funds go to the right investments and to the ones that have a chance for winning. Let us indeed not pick the winners, but let's make sure that we are nurturing those winners. And let's make sure that we build prosperity and a project of progress in Europe for our European citizens with your cooperation, with your help, and with our hopefully efficient instruments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MEP Tobback, for sharing your vision on the future of Europe. I keep these words, let's move you in the right direction. Very important words, taking into account that we are in the middle of the negotiation of the framework program and the ECF. Our next keynote speaker could not join us in person today, but still took the time out to her incredible busy schedule to record a video message for us. Let's all listen to European Commissioner Henna Virkkunen, Executive Vice President for Tech Sovereignty, Security and Democracy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a time of rapid change. Geopolitical shifts, technological breakthroughs, and global competition are reshaping the world. So how will Europe tackle these changes? The tech sovereignty package adopted last week is our answer to how we can strengthen European competitiveness and digital sovereignty. It is a coordinated, full-stack approach to break dependencies and build European competitiveness. But sovereignty does not happen by accident. It requires action, investment, and partnership. RTOs like you are important in making this a reality. You break silos, you accelerate innovation, you turn research into reality. The Tech Sovereignty Package has 4 key pillars. CHIPS Act 2.0 to secure and strengthen our semiconductor supply chain. Cloud and AI Development Act to unlock sovereign cloud and AI infrastructure and services. Open source strategy to reinforce Europe's autonomy of its digital infrastructure. And digitalization and AI in energy roadmap to make our data centers sustainable. RTOs are the bridge between research and industry. They take breakthroughs out of the lab and turn them into real-world solutions. Already in the first CHIPS Act, RTOs played a very critical role. 5 pilot lines are helping European companies test and validate new chip technologies. And with the tools of the CHIPS Act, including the design platform and the competence centers, Europe is and remains a world leader in semiconductor research. Yet while Europe excels in research, we struggle to turn it into industrial leadership and still depend heavily on third countries for advanced manufacturing and AI chips, which will dominate 70% of the global semiconductor market by 2030. So now it's the time to act and secure our share of this growth. And that is why we must go further. CHIPS Act 2.0 will stimulate European demand for our own chips, strengthen supply chains, and speed up industrial adoption. The Cloud and AI Development Act will set out a very clear legal framework for Europe's cloud and AI sector to thrive. RTOs can play a key role in supporting the ambition of the Cloud and AI Development Act by bridging cutting-edge research and industrial deployment, helping develop and validate critical technologies for next-generation sustainable data centers, and supporting the deployment of resilient cloud technologies for critical use cases. Let me be clear. If we want European AI to thrive, we need European cloud infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, technological sovereignty is not only about producing more technology in Europe, it is also about ensuring that the digital systems we rely on are open, interoperable, trusted, and resilient by design. The open source strategy will reduce our software dependencies, giving Europe more digital autonomy. The Commission leads by example. We have already introduced sovereignty as a requirement in our procurement of digital assets. In April, the Commission awarded a 180 million contract to produce sovereign cloud for the European Union institutions, bodies, offices, and agencies to 4 providers. To evaluate the sovereignty of the providers, we created a new tool, the Sovereign Cloud Framework, that we made available for all public and private organizations who wish to strengthen their digital sovereignty and resilience. As the final part of the package, the digitalization and AI in energy roadmap will ensure our data centers are both powerful and sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, the tech sovereignty package is Europe's chance to take control of its digital future by mainstreaming tech sovereignty across its policies. Together, we can build this Europe. With these words, I wish you a very great annual conference.
Our sincerest thanks to Executive Vice President Virkkunen for her insightful message. And moving on to our last speaker for this introductory session, I would like to invite on stage Bernard Magenhann, Director General at the European Commission Joint Research Center. Thank you very much for being with us. The floor is yours.
Honorable members, distinguished guests and colleagues, friends, I would like to thank EARTO for the organization of this event, very timely event. We, in the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, we have a long-standing and strong collaboration with EARTO since many years, and I'm really glad to be here today with you. We are the in-house scientific service of the European Commission, meaning that we provide science for better policies at European level. And I think we are going through a crucial moment because Europe is at a crossroad, as some speakers before me told you already. We know that European leads in science, in talents, in frontier technologies, but often the industrial value is captured elsewhere. As Mario Draghi reminded us with his report, Europe has been excellent in innovation, but too slow in industrialization. We need now to turn prototypes into production lines. We need to turn laboratories into factories, deploying knowledge faster, better, and at scale. Research and technology organization, as well as the Joint Research Center, can play an important role in this effort. We are uniquely positioned to support the initiative on bolstering European competitiveness, facilitating the scale-up of cutting-edge technologies, and reinforcing the continent's industrial base and technological leadership. One example is the GRC Innovation Center for Industrial Transformation and Emission. We name it InSight. With InSight, we bridge the valley of death between successful research and industrial deployment. InSight focuses on technologies close to market, such as pilot plans, demonstrators, and first industrial projects. It provides independent assessment of technical maturity, economic viability, and deployment barriers. In a nutshell, InSight helps answer the key investor question: is this technology truly ready to scale? By reducing uncertainties, it helps investment move faster, while ensuring that regulation, investment, and industrial needs move together. Too often we hear that Europe must choose between innovation and regulation. Europe does not need less regulation. Europe needs smarter regulation that are predictable, science-based, investment-friendly, because investors do not finance uncertainty. They finance clarity. For more than 20 years, the GRC Sevilla process has done exactly this, bringing together industry, member states, experts, and civil society to define what we call the best available techniques used to prevent and control the environmental impact of industrial activities. And this is not bureaucracy. It is industrial policy. Clear standards mean faster permitting. Faster deployment means stronger competitiveness. And we do not only analyze the present, we also look into possible scenarios for the future. And this is also where Europe Research and Technology Organization are essential. The GRC and EARTO work closely together in technology foresight, where we have a really likely GRC EARTO working group. We share cutting-edge methods, explore new areas of application, and test innovation in practice. And this working group has now become a genuine community of practice where leading Europe Research and Technology Organization can collaborate, learn from each other in a remarkable spirit of collaboration. And collaboration was addressed several times during this opening address. And this is what it is about today. This is what we should do working together. And just a few weeks ago, we were delighted to co-organize together with EARTO a workshop on how AI could support technology foresight. And I think we will see even more collaboration between our two organizations in this area in a very near future. By thinking ahead to the potential impact of emerging technologies, we can make informed decisions about investments, skills, governance, and which technology will shape our democratic, social, financial, and industrial system. This forward-thinking approach will enable us to harness technological advancement and create a brighter, more resilient future. It will become crucial in the global technological race that has started and that we experienced every day. In this sense, foresight is not only about anticipating changes, but it's also about supporting better policy making in a world shaped by rapid technological transformation. And before closing, let me just highlight one other example of the GRC support to innovation and industrial leadership. You may know that in the GRC we have a wide range of laboratories and research infrastructures across our 5 sites in Europe. And what you may not know is that these labs are open to external users, from academia to SMEs. This open access model does not just fuel innovation, it fosters knowledge sharing and contributes to bridging the gap between research and industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernard, for concluding such an intense opening session. A lot of food for thought already. We will now have a short coffee break with the Servit. So we will reconvene, let's say, 10:20 to kick off our first panel on RTOs, industry, and Europe's technological sovereignty. Thank you very much.